Have you ever heard of Oliver, the legendary brand of green tractors that once dominated America's farmlands? Maybe you remember seeing them working tirelessly on farms or hearing stories about their power and reliability. But then, one day, almost silently, Oliver disappeared from the map. No more new models, no more parts in dealerships. What killed Oliver? Today, we're going to uncover the secrets behind the disappearance of this agricultural giant. And the answer goes far beyond what you might imagine. But before you continue, leave a like and subscribe to our channel. The birth of a green empire. The Oliver Corporation was more than just a tractor manufacturer. It was the visionary merger of four specialized companies, each with a distinct legacy and innovative contributions to American agriculture. When Oliver Chilled Plow Works, Hart Parr Company, Nichols and Shepard Company, and American Seeding Machine Company decided to join forces in 1929, they were creating not just a new corporation, but a veritable green empire that would shape the future of agricultural mechanization. This union not only combined complementary expertise, but also signaled to the market that Oliver was ready to compete with the industry's biggest players. Oliver Chilled Plow Works, for example, was renowned for inventing the tempered steel plow, which revolutionized farming by cutting through hard, rocky soil with unprecedented efficiency. This not only saved time, but also allowed farmers to cultivate areas previously considered unworkable. Hart Parr, on the other hand, introduced gasoline-powered tractor technology, being one of the first manufacturers to popularize the concept. They not only manufactured tractors, but also helped coin the term tractor itself, symbolizing a combination of traction and engine. Nichols and Shepard Company brought to the merger its expertise in combines and threshers, which were crucial to increasing agricultural productivity, especially in times of abundant harvests. American Seeding Machine Company, in turn, brought know-how in efficient planting, with high-precision seeders that maximized productivity and minimized seed waste. With this combination, Oliver Corporation became a complete supplier of equipment for every phase of the agricultural production cycle, from soil preparation to harvest. The 1930s, despite the Great Depression, were a period of expansion for Oliver. It managed not only to survive but to thrive, thanks to its diversification and reputation for quality. Its products were known for their durability, efficiency, and technological innovations, such as the use of rubber tires on tractors, replacing steel wheels. This innovation, in addition to improving traction and speed, also reduced impact on the ground and discomfort for operators. During World War II, Oliver played an important role in producing essential agricultural equipment and supporting the war effort. This further cemented its image as a patriotic brand, essential to the country's food security. After the war, as the economy recovered and farm mechanization increased, Oliver continued to grow, consolidating its position as one of the Big Four in the American agricultural sector, alongside John Deere, International Harvester, and Case. Oliver's early success was not only due to its quality products, but also to its deep understanding of farmers' needs. The company was able to build a strong dealer network and provide reliable technical support, which made it the preferred choice for many farmers. Its tractors and implements were seen as safe investments, and the brand became a symbol of progress and innovation for farmers. The beginning of invisible cracks. As the 1960s wore on, Oliver began to feel the first signs of an invisible but profound erosion of its customer base and corporate structure. Although the company still maintained a strong name in the market, the warning signs were there for all to see. Competition was becoming increasingly fierce, with companies like John Deere and International Harvester investing heavily in new technologies and aggressive marketing strategies. Meanwhile, Oliver seemed to be relying too heavily on the reputation it had built in previous decades, failing to realize that the world around it was changing rapidly. This slowness in responding to market changes began to undermine the confidence of many farmers. Rivals were introducing more powerful diesel engines, sophisticated transmissions, and advanced hydraulic systems. Oliver, on the other hand, maintained its line of gasoline-powered tractors and models with less up-to-date technology. Consumers noticed the difference not only in performance, but also in fuel economy and durability, crucial factors for those who depended on the machine for their livelihoods. Oliver's own customers, loyal for years, began to question whether the brand was capable of continuing to be a reference. Stories about difficulties in supplying spare parts and technical support that was no longer as efficient as before were spreading in the fields, fueling a distrust that previously seemed unthinkable. These small signs of failure were not just operational problems, but symptoms of a company that was falling behind. The agricultural market was also changing structurally. Small farms, once the basis of Oliver's success, were being replaced by larger, more mechanized farms, requiring more powerful tractors with cutting-edge technology. John Deere, an international harvester, recognized this change and adapted, launching specific models to meet new demands. Oliver, on the other hand, seemed stuck in the past, offering solutions that were no longer sufficient for modern challenges. The slow response to market changes. The transformation of the agricultural market in the 1960s was not only rapid, it was brutal, and Oliver responded with a slowness that would eventually lead to oblivion. While its competitors invested millions in new technologies, Oliver stuck to a line of traditional and largely outdated products. Gasoline-powered tractors, which had been a hallmark of innovation decades earlier, no longer met the needs of modern farmers. The growing preference for more powerful and efficient diesel engines was a clear symptom of a changing market, and Oliver seemed to ignore the warning. This resistance to modernization wasn't limited to the engine. While companies like John Deere were introducing synchronized transmissions and more sophisticated hydraulic systems, Oliver stuck with simpler components and solutions that seemed dated. Farmers, increasingly pressured to increase productivity and reduce costs, were looking for tractors that offered not only power, but also comfort, durability, and versatility. Oliver, however, seemed to be stuck with a formula that no longer worked. This disconnect was also reflected in the way Oliver approached its customers. The brand, once synonymous with trust and innovation, began to be perceived as conservative and resistant to change. Farmers who depended on these tractors began to seek alternatives that offered them solutions adapted to the new reality of large properties, intensive mechanization, and technological integration. The trust in Oliver, built with so much effort in the past, began to crumble. Internally, the slowness in adopting new strategies and technologies also took its toll. Oliver's corporate structure was cumbersome and inflexible, which made it difficult to make quick decisions and execute innovative projects. The corporate culture, still anchored in past successes, resisted bold changes. Investment in research and development was insufficient to keep up with the frenetic pace of innovation in the industry. The acquisition that seemed like a solution, but turned into a trap. In 1960, Oliver was acquired by the White Motor Company, a conglomerate specializing in the manufacture of trucks and buses, in an attempt to revive the brand and breathe new life into it. Initially, the acquisition seemed like the ideal solution to Oliver's growing problems. It promised abundant financial resources and new management that could revitalize the company, allow investment in research and development, and modernize the product line. Many saw this move as a golden opportunity for Oliver to regain its place in the agricultural industry. However, this hope soon proved unfounded. White Motor Company had no significant experience in the agricultural sector and underestimated the complexity of the market in which Oliver operated. Applying management and production practices specific to the trucking industry, the new parent company failed to understand the specific needs of farmers and the seasonal cycles that characterized the tractor business. This lack of understanding led to a series of decisions that were poorly aligned with the reality on the ground. One of the most impactful changes was the decision to consolidate acquired agricultural brands, including Oliver, Cockshut, and Minneapolis Moline, under the White Farm Equipment banner. This change eliminated the historical identity that each brand had built with its customers over decades. For farmers, trust in Oliver was not just in the product, but also in the tradition, history, and relationship with the brand. The replacement with a generic brand without the same recognition provoked rejection and distrust. In addition to the branding issue, White implemented aggressive cost-cutting to increase profitability. Product quality and after-sales service were the first to suffer. Reduced investment in research and development left Oliver's tractor line even further behind its competitors, while farmers noticed a decline in reliability and availability of parts and service. White's expansion strategy, which included the acquisition of other agricultural brands without a clear vision for integration, resulted in product overlap and internal competition. Similar models competed with each other, confusing dealers and customers. This fragmented and poorly planned scenario made it difficult to position itself in the market and build customer loyalty, deepening the crisis that was already taking hold at Oliver. Farmers, sensing disorganization and loss of identity, began to migrate to competing brands that maintained traditions and invested in innovation. John Deere and International Harvester, for example, strengthened their ties with customers by offering more modern products, superior technical support, and a consistent brand identity. Oliver, now diluted under the White name, lost ground and trust. The failure to understand the intangible value of a solid brand like Oliver was perhaps White Motor Company's most serious mistake. The decision to prioritize operational efficiency and cost-cutting over customer relationships and maintaining tradition resulted in a gradual alienation from the public. Instead of revitalizing Oliver, White ended up accelerating its decline. This process made it clear that the acquisition, which seemed like the ideal solution, was actually a trap in disguise. Oliver, which was already facing considerable challenges before the purchase, was driven to a more rapid and irreversible collapse by White's mismanagement. The story of this poorly planned acquisition has become a classic example of how corporate decisions, if disconnected from the market and customers, can destroy a historic brand. The perfect storm: internal mistakes and external pressures. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, Oliver faced a deadly combination of internal and external factors that led to its demise. The global economic crisis hit the agricultural industry hard, with sharp drops in commodity prices, rising interest rates, and a recession that hit farmers hard. This scenario led many producers to postpone investments in new equipment and reduce operating expenses. For Oliver, which was already weakened by poor strategic decisions and a lack of innovation, this was the final straw. Internally, the company was facing a crisis of identity and trust. Consolidation under the White Farm Equipment name had diluted the brand and alienated traditional customers. Many farmers who had previously identified with the tradition and quality of Oliver products became suspicious of the new management, fearing that the essence of the brand had been sacrificed for short-term corporate strategies. This distrust translated into declining sales and customer loyalty. White's management was unable to cope with the worsening economic situation. Aggressive cost-cutting directly affected the quality of products and services. Reduced investment in research and development resulted in a tractor line that was increasingly out of date compared to competitors' innovations. The lack of parts and delays in technical support fueled customer dissatisfaction, creating a vicious cycle of distrust and abandonment of the brand. While Oliver was floundering, competitors such as John Deere and International Harvester not only weathered the crisis, but also strengthened their market positions. They invested in technology, expanded their service networks, and maintained strong brand identities, attracting the farmers Oliver was losing. The contrast between Oliver's stagnation and the vitality of its competitors was one of the most visible elements of this perfect storm. The crisis was not limited to the external environment. Within White Motor Company, the lack of experience in the agricultural sector and poor operational management compounded the problems. The attempt to apply business models from the trucking sector to the agricultural market proved disastrous. Management priorities were misaligned with the needs of farmers, and decisions were made without considering the dynamics and specificities of the sector. Debt and revenues were inevitable. White Motor Company, already under pressure from its core operations, found its agricultural division becoming an unsustainable financial burden. In 1980, the company filed for bankruptcy, a collapse that not only sealed its fate, but also marked the definitive demise of Oliver as an independent brand. This tragic outcome was not only the result of economic factors, it was also the consequence of a series of management errors and a progressive disconnect between Oliver and its audience. The lack of investment in innovation, the disregard for the brand's identity, and the inability to face modern competition were all ingredients of this storm. The human factor, the loss of trust. Oliver's downfall was not just a question of technology or financial management. It crucially involved the human factor, the relationship between the brand and farmers. For decades, Oliver was more than a supplier of tractors. It represented tradition, reliability, and a commitment to the farmer. This emotional connection was built on quality, innovation, and a constant presence on farms. But it began to crumble when the brand stopped listening to its customers and disconnected from their real needs. Replacing the Oliver name with the generic white farm equipment was the first major blow to this relationship of trust. For many farmers, the disappearance of the well-known name felt like a betrayal. It was as if the company had disowned its history and the generations of farmers who had trusted it. This distancing created an emotional gap that competitors, especially John Deere and International Harvester, were able to exploit masterfully, reinforcing their own traditions and investing in emotional marketing. Problems with technical support and parts supply further increased the wear and tear. A farmer who fails to have his tractor repaired in a timely manner loses not only time, but also money and productivity. When this happens repeatedly, trust in the brand quickly fades. And that is exactly what happened to Oliver, especially during the most critical years of the agricultural crisis. Many reported difficulties in finding parts and obtaining adequate support, which forced them to migrate to other, more structured brands. Furthermore, White failed to realize that customer loyalty is not bought with price or product alone, but with experience and relationships. The lack of loyalty programs, little attention to personalized service, and lack of effective communication left farmers feeling abandoned. Trust, an intangible but essential element for the continuity of any brand, was replaced by distrust and frustration. Farmers, even the most faithful, began to report that Oliver had lost his soul. This perception, even if subjective, had concrete consequences. Sales dropped, contracts were canceled, and the brand was no longer the first choice. Negative word of mouth spread throughout the camps, creating a reputation that White was unable to contain or reverse. This cycle of attrition was made worse by a management that seemed more concerned with numbers and cuts than with the people behind the machines. The loss of trust was also reflected in distributors and resellers, who felt the direct impact of customer dissatisfaction. Many began to prioritize other, more reliable and innovative brands, which further reduced Oliver's reach and presence in the market. This change in the distribution chain had a domino effect, accelerating the brand's demise and consolidating its loss of relevance. While competitors invested in new products, technologies, and relationship strategies, Oliver remained inert, without a clear plan to win back its customers. Attempts to adjust prices or launch slightly modified models were not enough to reverse the tide of distrust. When a brand loses the respect and affection of its customers, even the best promotions become useless. The lesson is clear. In the business world, especially in the agricultural sector, customer trust is a precious and irreplaceable asset. Oliver did not lose this trust all at once, but rather gradually, with each wrong decision, each delay in support, and each time it ignored the voices of the field. The human factor, neglected in the name of operational efficiency, ended up being the element that contributed most to the brand's downfall. Thus, the end of Oliver was not just the disappearance of a company, but the breaking of a bond of trust built over generations. A brand that was once synonymous with innovation and partnership with rural producers became a bitter example of how poorly aligned decisions can break relationships and erase stories. The legacy, lessons from a fall foretold. Oliver's story ends with lessons that transcend the world of agriculture and resonate in any industry that relies on innovation, tradition, and customer connection. When the brand finally disappeared from the market, it wasn't just a name that disappeared. It was the end of an era, marked by values such as trust, quality, and a sense of community that the company had built over decades. However, this legacy did not disappear entirely. On the contrary, Oliver left a trail of lessons that continue to be studied and applied in the business world. One of the biggest lessons was the importance of adapting to the market without losing your identity. Oliver, in his prime, symbolized innovation in agriculture. It introduced revolutionary technological solutions, but failed to realize that the market does not remain static. The attachment to outdated technologies, the slowness to adopt new engines, transmissions, and operator amenities, such as more comfortable cabins and advanced hydraulic systems, was fatal. The same applies to any company that refuses to innovate. Oliver also illustrates the danger of underestimating the emotional value of a brand. When White eliminated the Oliver name and attempted to merge multiple agricultural brands under a single banner, it disregarded the loyalty of generations of farmers. Trust, a valuable currency in any business relationship, was traded for an empty corporate promise. The result was an exodus of customers to competitors who preserved their identity and invested in relationships. Another crucial lesson is the importance of strategic management. White Motor Company failed to understand the specifics of the agricultural industry and applied tactics that might have worked for trucks and buses but not for tractors. Unpreparedness for a severe economic crisis, coupled with poorly planned, cost-cutting decisions, ruined Oliver and hurt its own operations. Crisis management requires context, sensitivity, and rapid adaptation, which White failed to provide. Oliver's crisis also highlighted the essential role of the distribution network and customer support. Farmers who experienced service failures and difficulties in obtaining parts or technical assistance turned away from the brand. The reputation for reliability built over years was destroyed in a few episodes of dissatisfaction. This shows that, even with an excellent product, the customer experience is crucial to survival. Yet Oliver's history is not just a tale of failure. It also celebrates the resilience of its products and the legacy they inspired. Many Oliver tractors are still restored and displayed at agricultural shows and in private collections today. They symbolize a golden age in the mechanization of agriculture and continue to inspire enthusiasts and entrepreneurs who study their history to avoid similar mistakes. Another noteworthy aspect is Oliver's role in building the cultural identity of agricultural regions. The green colors, iconic models, and pride associated with tractors are still remembered in rural communities. The brand has not disappeared from the collective memory, only from the market. This intangible heritage is proof that a brand can transcend its product and become part of history and popular imagination. Thus, Oliver's disappearance should be seen as a warning to companies in all sectors: constant innovation, respect for the identity that has been built, attention to market changes, and, above all, a solid relationship with the customer are essential ingredients for longevity. Oliver's case proves that tradition and innovation must go hand in hand, and that without them, even giants can fall. Oliver's story ends as a great warning to the corporate world and to all those who lead brands with significant legacies. What killed Oliver was not just relentless competition or a temporary economic crisis. It was a combination of bad decisions, slowness to innovate, management failures, and above all, disregard for the trust and loyalty built with customers. Oliver teaches us that tradition and quality are precious values, but that without constant adaptation, these values become vulnerable. The disappearance of this agricultural giant did not erase its memory. On the contrary, It lives on in the fields and hearts of those who still remember its legacy. And most importantly, it remains a living example that the true strength of a brand lies not only in what it produces, but in the bond it builds with its audience. An eternal lesson in business, humanity, and history. Comment here from which location you are watching this video and which other company you would like to see here on our channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.